Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another episode of the Dr. Will Show, the mobile university for entrepreneurs. This is the go-to business podcast for educators who want to learn how to create an education business and to live their life on their own terms. I am your host, Dr. Will, and today, man, I have a guest for you. We just had a great chit chat. Before this recording, I have not spoken with this guest in several years, but I am so excited because I've been following her journey on social media and she is doing some awesome things. She's written this book, this journal, and we're going to be talking about that today. And, get ready to learn, get ready to be transformed. And there will be links in the show notes for you to go get this journal so you can begin your steps to self-discovery and self-love. So for those who'll be listening on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Supercast, Stitcher, Spotify, and Audible, today's guest is Michelle Moore. Will you please introduce yourself?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. What an introduction. And thank you for having me back. I feel honored to be a repeat guest on your show and have also enjoyed watching your journey and growth and involvement, evolving ways that you've been contributing into EdTech and helping all of us educators grow and figure out how we can make an impact.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much. Here I am. I was on Instagram and I saw the cover, saw the journal come through, and I said, oh, okay. And I've seen you make videos about these things, and I know you've always been into the spiritual and exercise and fitness and all those things. So I was really happy that you were putting something out there for the masses, for them to begin that inner transformation. What inspired you to write the 100 Days to Self-Love, and how does that reflect your own journey?
Yeah, so it is my journey. It's so interesting. And especially, from the time we've known each other, I think we've had a lot of friends and colleagues who have written books. And over the years, people would, randomly ask me like, oh, when are you going to write a book? And I was like, oh yeah, maybe one day. And, I did articles and I've been published in magazines for EdTech, but I never felt that passionate about a specific message to write a whole book on it. And I knew that I didn't want to force it. I was like, when the time comes, it'll come. We were talking about God earlier. Like, I'm a big believer that when God has a message, it will be delivered. And if I'm, going to be that vessel, then what a blessing. But this journal was interesting because I actually wrote all the mantras as I was healing. And as I progressed in my healing journey, I was like, wait a minute, these have really, really helped me. And I think I have enough for a book now. Which is like just so ironic because I feel like that's exactly how I would write a book. It took the pressure away of having to have an idea for a book and then outline it and, do it that, I reverse engineered it literally by writing all the content first and then organizing it. But it came from my heartbreak. Heartbreak is one of our greatest teachers, and my heartbreak was a really great mirror to hold up to myself and realize all the ways that I wasn't loving myself. And I really just wanted to, figure out a way, like, how can I pour into myself? How can I really value my worth and love myself, perfectly imperfect in all the ways as I am right here, right now. And the mantras help kind of serve as like a daily anchor for me. And every day I would repeat a mantra. I didn't write a mantra every day, but throughout the months, they were created. And every day I just kind of picked like the one that I needed to remind myself for that day.
So you describe your book, your journal, as a personal guide. What do you think people are missing when it comes to loving themselves?
Mm. I think especially, Western culture, we equate our value to our achievements and our accomplishments. And we are so conditioned to chase that achievement that we miss out on being present. I often joke with people if I had to pick a Disney character that I was like, which I don't even know if this is Disney, but Kung Fu Panda, Tigress, like I am checking off all the boxes, trying to be worthy of being the chosen one. My whole life was really just about checking off boxes. And someone, it's like seeking that external validation. Like, am I good enough now? Am I lovable enough now? Am I enough now? Is it all worth it now? Do I have enough plaques on the wall? Do I have enough awards? Do I have enough achievements? And I think in our society as a whole, we're just missing permission to slow down, to feel, to really honor where we are in our journey right now, and not always having to think about the future. And there's a lot of compassion that we miss out on when we're always chasing that next level. So I really just wanted people to like have the space to be compassionate, to witness themselves, to witness everything going on underneath, without judgment, just observe.
I want to sit with that for a bit. Wow. So with that, can you share a pivotal moment in your life when you realized the importance of self-compassion or giving yourself grace?
Yeah. Vulnerable share. I had 2 really heartbreaking relationships in a row, and I really had to pause and like reflect on what I was doing and how I was contributing to my own heartbreak. And, like I mentioned, not with judgment, not like a blaming, like, look at yourself and here you are again, but with true compassion, and really sit in that stillness and meet that deeper version of myself. And I saw, the little girl who thought she was unlovable. I saw all the old versions of me that believed they weren't enough. And I didn't judge them. I welcomed them. I forgave them. And I thanked them, because every version of me has gotten me to where I am today. And like, I would not be able to be here if it wasn't for all those failures, if it wasn't for all those times that I didn't think I was enough and had to learn one more lesson along the way. And I think we're so quick to want to hold on to shame or, delete those old versions of ourselves. I think about people with social media, you see that old photo pop up from 10 years ago and you're like, oh, my mom's always like, oh no, that's an ugly photo. And I'm like, who cares? Like, that's where you were in that moment in time. Like, what a gift, to be able to see it and relive it and thank them for where you were at that moment. That really helped me develop my compassion, was when I really understood how that little girl who didn't think she was unlovable, who collected all this evidence. I think it was Tracy Ross has a quote about every heartbreak, she would toss it into this dumpster of unlovability. And it was like, look at all the ways that I'm unlovable, just toss it in the pile. And in many ways, I had that little girl inside of me just looking for ways that I wasn't enough and I wasn't lovable. And once I had that self-awareness to see that, I could hug her, I could hold her, I could show her all the reasons that she was enough and she was worthy of being loved.
Well, how was that process like? Because I don't know if people are ready to do that type of work,
They're not.
or right, or even would know where to begin, because you mentioned, okay, I had these events happen in my life which caused me to go through this process. When someone has something, whatever event, and they're just sitting there, and I know there's a question later on that, it's my closer, people, be ready for it. uh, how do people begin to wrap their heads around that?
It's a great question. So I always say there are a million strings you can pull on for self-healing. It's like, just go down a rabbit hole. Maybe you need to go to a therapist. Maybe you need to change your diet. Maybe you need to go exercise. Maybe you need to go do yoga. Maybe you need to listen to podcasts from people who have gone through what you're going through. If it was a specific traumatic event, like you lost a spouse or you lost a child, there's a Facebook group and a podcast for just about everything. there are so many strings that you can pull on. And I think that's like the blessing and the curse of our present day, over information, oversharing, is sometimes people get overwhelmed and then it leads them to inaction. They choose to do nothing because they don't know where to start. So my biggest urge to someone who is not where they want to be, or who envisions a life better for themselves than what they are currently living, is just pull a string, any string. It literally does not matter, because you go down one rabbit hole and that'll lead you to another, and then you'll go down another. And all the while you are shedding and releasing and transforming and evolving until you can fully alchemize and learn lessons that you need to embody who you really are.
So, in writing your journal, why choose 100 days as the length for self-love?
So glad you asked that. 100 days just sounds nice. It's 100%. But as I was on my own journey and trying to change my habits, I did a lot of research on, how long do you have to do a habit daily for it to actually stick with you? And the research varies, depending on how heavy of a lift the habit is. There's a lot of different timelines for it. The harder the habit, the longer you have to do it. But there's a general consensus that if you do something for 100 days, it makes it pretty sticky. So the first time that I took on like my own 100-day challenge, and I've done a couple since then, the first one I did was just meditating. I realized, when I was thinking about that little girl who didn't love herself, a lot of the voices I was hearing in my head weren't my own. They were my ex-boyfriends. They were, maybe family members. They were other people's voices telling me I wasn't enough. And, we can't have that. I was like, if I put myself down, that's one thing, but like, I'm not going to have people in my head putting me down. So I pulled on a string, and that string was meditation. I said, what would it look like if I meditated every day for 100 days straight? And it completely caused a mindset shift, and I was forever grateful for it. And it showed me that 100 days of doing something consistently is enough to make a lasting impact. And the research will show it's also enough to change neurons and pathways, a lot of other good stuff to go with it. So I was like, if we can do this for 100 days, like that's enough to where people should feel like they really got something out of the journey. And I know no one's perfect. So I also put in, the little introduction to the journal and how to use it. Like, if you don't do it for 100 days straight, that's okay. Maybe you need to take a break. Maybe you miss a day. Don't make it this thing that you have to do, and then you're shaming yourself and feeling down on yourself if you miss a day. Some of the prompts are really heavy. You might struggle with it and you might need a break. I've had girlfriends tell me like, whew, this section is really strong and like, I need to take a minute. I'm like, yes, take a minute, take a day, but pick it back up. Commit to yourself. When are you going to pick it back up so that it doesn't just stay in the corner and you sell yourself short?
So you have these 25-day check-ins. Why did you include those check-ins, and what do they help you uncover?
Yeah, those check-ins started, I started doing them for myself when I was doing the meditation challenge. And I really appreciated at the end of the 100 days, seeing how my thoughts progressed and changed over the time period. So I thought they would be really important to include in the 100 days. I also think sometimes we make such small changes in ourselves. It's really hard for us to remember where we started and where we are now. Similar to going on a diet or going to the gym, they always say like, take progress photos, or you weigh yourself to track your progress, but you have to have something other, outside of yourself, some sort of data point to look at, because otherwise it's so easy to let it go. And I really just wanted to give people that pause to be like, wow, like, look how far I've come. Like, maybe I bought this journal because I was hoping to gain X, and look at all this other stuff I've gotten out of it.
Okay. All right. That's all right. That's all right. So I'm thinking about myself. Because I have not done anything like that, and I've been thinking about putting stuff down of sort of what I want and where to be.
Oh, I got a good exercise for you. We'll talk about it later.
Right. Because I have these these thoughts, but I've never put anything down on paper. I've mentioned this on the podcast. A few years ago, I was diagnosed as having like functional depression. And I didn't know like what was going on. I just knew that I was in this funk, like it was a cloud. And I didn't want to, I went to work and I was able to do what I did. I didn't see a drop off, of anything like that. But I knew that I didn't want to do podcasting. Like if you look at that period, like there was a gap in me releasing shows. Like I didn't like stuff that I enjoyed doing and wanted to do, I did not do. And I was just like not happy. And I was like, yo, I gotta go see somebody. And that's when, I found out about it. And so I've been, off and on, I've gone to therapy. And the crazy thing about it for me is once I sort of would come out of it, and then I'm like, all right, woo, I'm back again. And then it just hit me one day. I was like, you don't really sort of cure it, so to speak. Like it's not like a cold that goes away, but it's like, okay, so how do I get this? Trying to figure out when it's coming, because I never see it coming. I just find myself in it.
That would be powerful, right? So then you could mentally prepare and know that it's coming.
Yes, I just find myself in it, and then I'm like, okay, and then I can tell when I'm coming out of it, and I'm like, okay, so yeah, the last therapist I went to, I was like, I said, I can't go back to him. I don't like this back and forth, or you just sitting there and you let me talk. Tell me what to do. I need an action plan. I don't need you just sit there and
Yeah, that can only get you so far.
yeah, I'm like, all right, we need to go better. But
Well, I got for you. And you know what? One of them, we'll put it in the show notes because it's a YouTube link that takes you through an exercise. So watching can also go through it. And basically you create, what you want your life to look like in a very meaningful declaration statement.
awesome. Because in having this conversation, it made me think about all of that. Because, earlier this week, we were having a conversation earlier before. Yeah. But, in my mind, I was like, I did put in a message on Blue Sky. But, I was saying like, I'm tired of the dark, right? And I was getting ready to use some language that I should not be using, because there are individuals that I know who contribute and exacerbate the situation. Right now, I'm able to sit back and recognize that, because I am in a different space. But I do know that I want to go back to the Will I was, let's say, 13 years ago. That was just, to me, that was just like a
peak.
Yeah, I was like, hey, I was doing it. That was a good time, Will. And so all that made me think about that. And as we're having this conversation going on over your talking about your journal, it's one of those things where I'm like, I'm just trying to, at this point now, going, I need to put this stuff down, because I don't know how many years I have left, but I do want them to be awesome.
Yeah, meaningful and impactful. Absolutely.
I do, especially since the student loans are gone. I just want them to be.
Congratulations.
Oh yes, I just I just want them to be like amazing. So
Before we move on, there's one more,
yeah.
there's a book, we got to add it to the show notes because it's really good for anyone else listening who really wants to make meaning out of, whatever years they have left. Really the second half of your life is what the book is about, but it's called Halftime: Moving from Success to Significance. It's one of my favorite books, amazing journal exercises inside of it. And the idea is what you're talking about. It's like you have this prime, you accomplish all these things, and the student loans are paid off, the house might be paid off, maybe you're checking off boxes, retirement's looking like you're going to be in a good spot. Now what? And it takes you through these amazing exercises to really figure out how you are going to make a meaningful impact the second half of your life that's going to feel significant and cause ripples you'll never see the end of.
Excited about that. Excited about that. So we've heard about affirmations. I'm assuming by now everyone who is breathing at this point has heard about affirmations. What role do they actually play in shifting one's mindset, right? And how should one engage them daily?
Yeah. There's a lot of research on this. I'm not an expert. If people want the research, go ask AI or Google, but I will share how they impacted me. A lot of people say they hate the phrase fake it till you make it. That phrase saves me because there were times where, I was randomly crying in the middle of like my kitchen floor, bawling on the floor, couldn't get up because, some sort of emotion had come over me that I was working through. And affirmations, those mantras, and really telling myself like, I am worthy, I am lovable, I am enough. I didn't believe them when I was saying them, but I knew that the person I wanted to be believed those things. And so I had to tell myself. And then it wasn't just telling myself, like, I am enough. I had to really feel it, so like, what was I going to do to really feel it in my body and remind my soul that those words were true? And they greatly helped me. And it went from like doing it because I knew that's what the person I wanted to be would do, until, slowly but surely starting to kind of believe it. And then getting to the point where I saw the evidence in my life. I saw the gifts that God had given me, the ways he was showing me that I am enough, that I am lovable. And I could spot all those synchronicities that were happening to prove to me that what I was saying was true.
Wow.
It's magical. I mean, people can go Google the science, but I don't care about that. All I know is my experience, and it's magic.
Well, you also talk about chakras and aligning them. For those who are unfamiliar, can you explain what they are and why was it important for you to include it in the book?
Yeah. And as I was creating the journal, I mentioned I wrote the mantras over time. And originally I was just going to have 100 mantras,
Mhm.
I don't know, I've never done this before. Like, I don't know. And then as I was editing them, I was like, well, some of these mantras are kind of about being in relationships, or journal prompts. They're not all mantras, but, some of these focus more about the impact we're making in our community. So I started categorizing them. And as I started making the categories, it starts with self-worth, your root chakra, who you are down deep in your womb or in your soul, and it rises up to there into spirit. So what I realized was there are going to be some of these sections, there's 10 altogether. Some of these sections are going to be really hard for people, and they're not going to know why. And I want them to know why, because self-awareness is so important in your healing journey. You have to find a way to find your blind spots. And this journal might help you find some of those blind spots. So by aligning the chakras to the categories, it's like, okay, you know what? Like, this was a really hard section for me. What's going on? It's connected to the heart chakra. Maybe there's some healing I need to do there. Where, am I hurt in love? Where am I not feeling loved? And how can I kind of explore that wound a little bit more and try to figure out how can I get more in alignment? So that's the only reason they're there. And, people can totally ignore it. I kind of touch on it in the introduction as well. Like, if it doesn't serve you, don't worry about it. But if you're kind of curious and you're like, why am I like really resistant through this section of 10 mantras, it might be because there's some misalignment there that needs to get worked out.
Okay. And you talk about balancing energy, right? So how does that support someone's journey towards self-love?
Yeah. I mean, even as you were talking and sharing your experience, like I see imbalance is really a sign of like disconnection. Whenever we see like doubt, fear, burnout, something is out of balance, something is disconnected, and we really need to bring that balance back to figure it out. I think of teachers in general. I think of myself when I was in the classroom, and I'm like, no wonder I was burned out. There's no way that I had balance in my life. I got to the school before the sun came up, and a lot of times I was there till 5, 6 o'clock at night doing things I signed up for, extracurricular activities that, yearbook or sponsoring a club or trying to grade all the essays there because I didn't want to take them home and I had my children at home. But there was no such thing as balance. And I was really, it was a really hard time for me when you feel like you have to prove you're enough. And, in teaching, you're never going to be enough because you have 150 kids and there's only one of you. And there's, everyone is the boss of me. It's really, really hard. So I think teaching in itself causes a lot of misalignment. It just doesn't create the space for people to live a life that, is truly in balance. It's not impossible. I think if you have great leadership, if you have a great community, if you're teaching something you feel very connected to, there can definitely be balance. But it's kind of like, those unicorns. It's really hard to find all of that at one school, with 1 year's course load. It may happen for some, but for most, it probably doesn't. So I think it's really important to think about like, where is my energy out of balance? Because that's where I need to pour love into myself.
This has been kind of like circling in my head because of some things that you have said during this interview. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask this question. I don't know how I'm going to ask it, but I'm going to ask it. I believe I saw you post this on Instagram, how and growing up, you wanted to be beautiful, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, my birthday reel. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. What have you learned about yourself and relationships that you did not know before?
Oh, so much. And a lot of that, I have to say, part of the reason I was able to get off my kitchen floor crying is there was a podcast. Got to add it to the list. It's going to be a long list of show notes. Dr. Jillian, I think it's Jillian on Love. She's a relationship expert, and Lord, that woman helped me. She really helped me, and she helped me see what love was not. There are so many examples of what was not love in my life that I was confusing for love. And there are so many ways I wanted to be loved that was not actually love. It was just what I was conditioned or what I thought or was taught was love because of my own culture, experience, upbringing, ancestors, everything. It was a lot of unlearning. When I talk about emptying the vessel and alchemizing, like this journey for me started in 2022. And I feel like almost all 3 years was just shedding and letting go and releasing, and kind of sprinkled in those years at times I got to, replace what I was releasing with what I wanted. But Jillian does a great job in one of her podcasts, and she says, you'll know you are over your heartbreak when you realize all the reasons you shouldn't have been with that partner. And you realize if they were to walk into your life today, you would never even take a second look at them. And I never believed that. I was always like, well, my ex-boyfriend was kind of cute. I don't know if I'm going to get there, Jillian, but I see what you're doing here, and I'm going to get kind of there. And now I see it. I'm like, wow, like no way would I have talked to somebody like that. Like there were so many red flags from the beginning. And even the way, the relationship evolved, it just wouldn't happen now. I'm not that person. And there were so many things I allowed because I was just so desperately seeking to be loved that I just would not stand for today.
Is that the individual who was on Oprah's podcast? And she had talked about her book and how
she did her book on there.
And her husband broke up with her in a weird way.
Yeah. Wow. That's her. She has great Instagram posts, great podcasts. They're all very specific. So, it's like if you're married, there's an episode for it. You can just browse through the titles and find the ones that resonate with you. They're a little lengthier, but I take really good notes from them. I can't do anything else while I'm listening to them because I feel like I'm always stopping it to write something down. And she just knows her stuff. That's her gift. Her heartbreak has now led her to be this vessel for others to, navigate their own heartbreak and lead them to their own worthiness. And like, what a blessing, horrible things she had to go through, but look where she is now. And I truly believe she is, walking in her dharmic path. Like this is what she was put here to do. And it was all because of a heartbreak.
Yeah, I find romantic relationships fascinating. I enjoy watching shows, especially podcasts on them. I find that we, as society, we have so many terms and definitions for stuff now that I'm like it's just not needed. And I'm thinking, I'm just real simple, right? It's like show up as your full self, right? Just show up as your full self. Never shrink who you are for someone else, right? And that person who is for you will embrace your full self, right? You don't have to, change your core being. Not to say that we don't have things to work on, but, if you are loud, then stay loud. I mean, that's just who you are. Like I had an aunt of mine, and she was awesome, but she was she was not a little, as they say, a shrinking violet. That wasn't what her personality was. Well, neither was her husband either, but neither of them tried to change each other.
Yeah.
Right? They just both were like this ball of energy that loved being around. And I think that's what you just need to do. I don't know if I'm oversimplifying the thing, but
I think that's it. I really do believe it's that simple. I was going to show you. I don't think it'll show up. It won't show up because the blur on my screen, but
yeah.
I keep the mantra on my phone. Oh, there it is. So I always change the mantra on my phone, like I said, for whatever I need. I've had this one for a couple weeks now, but it says, I am worthy of a love that meets me where I am and grows with me. That's it. That's what you just said. And that's literally it. And like you have to have shared values. You have to make sure the temperament that you want and things like that. But at the end of the day, take me as I am and take me for everything that I'm going to become. Hold that space for me and I'll do the same for you.
And that's it. Next month, inshallah, June 4th will be our 22nd wedding anniversary. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. Alhamdulillah. Yeah. This has been a really awesome conversation, and I think one that is needed, because I don't know. Well, I do know that a lot of people are not doing that inner work. right? They're just living, right? They're just kind of wait. Well, I don't even know if it's called living. They're existing.
They're still plugged in. They got to unplug.
Yeah. So it's been awesome. And here's that question that I mentioned earlier in the intro, and one that you even said, hey, I like this on Instagram when you saw this question. Before we go, what do you say to someone who think that they are too broken to experience self-love?
Love this question. First thing is, you are not broken. You're being called to something greater. I truly, truly believe that. The other one, it was really hard for me not to say this earlier, but I wanted to save it, for this question. You talked about darkness. Sometimes we have a darkness inside of us. Light only exists in relation to darkness. And I truly believe the deeper the shadows, the brighter the light will be. The deeper the trauma, the deeper the hurt, the more gifts that you will receive from that experience that are meant to be shared with the world. We talked about Dr. Jillian earlier experiencing the hardest heartbreak of her life, and now she's on Oprah because of that heartbreak. Definitely did not seem like a gift while she was going through it, but she went through it. She did not avoid the pain, and now she's on the other side of it. So much of our society is about avoiding and numbing and trying to stay away from that pain that is really trying to lead us to our greatness. You deserve tenderness and compassion exactly where you are in this moment, and you have to give it to yourself first before anyone else does.
That's all right. I love it. I love it. And people, go out, buy the journal.
And I have to say, so I don't make any money off the journal. Sorry, I forgot to talk about this earlier. All the proceeds go to Warrior Retreats, which is like a world-class leadership retreat. I was on that retreat when I got the idea for what to do with the mantras. So it's my give back and my service, and hoping that other people are able to get scholarships and go on the retreat for themselves. So you're healing yourself, but you're helping others heal as well. Like I said, it's about those ripples that you're never going to see the end of.
Yes, yes. Around here, I like to say we make the impact and the income. But thank you. That's how we do it. It's been great having you on the show, Michelle, and reconnecting. Again, in the show notes, how to connect with Michelle on social, as well as get the journal. As you see, the proceeds will be going to, you said, the Warrior
Retreats.
Warrior Retreats, and then other resources that she has in there. Go check out Dr. Jillian. It's going to be very resources for you. And I want you to check out this podcast and listen to it again and again and again and get that journal. So you know how to do this. Let's close this out. This podcast episode is going to be on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Simplecast, Stitcher, Spotify, and Audible. I need you to subscribe and to share with your network. And though I'm on all major podcast platforms, I'm trying to really grow on Apple Podcasts because I'm trying to be found, and I'm trying to get Oprah on the show because I want her to know that we're doing big things. And I want Auntie O to bring me on because your boy's ready to podcast for real, full time, and get paid for it. So I need you to leave me some reviews and leave me some stars, people. All right. And really listen to it because they check that. Again, I'd like to thank my guest, Michelle Moore, for coming on and dropping so many gems. So for you, for checking out another episode of the Dr. Will Show, the Mobile University for Entrepreneurs. As always, people, invest in you. EDU. Peace.